I lay in the hospital bed, tubes running in and out of my body, machines beeping their steady rhythm, when I heard my daughter's voice cut through the morphine haze like a knife through butter. "The old man's got maybe 2 weeks left," she whispered to someone on the phone. "The doctor said the cancer spread faster than they expected. Once he's gone, we sell the cabin in Muskoka, liquidate his pension, and finally get out of this frozen hellhole. Vancouver real estate won't wait forever." My eyes were closed. My body was weak from the chemotherapy, but my mind was razor sharp, and my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces right there in room 412 of Toronto General Hospital. They thought I was sleeping. They thought the medication had knocked me out cold. They didn't know that a man who spent 40 years building highways across northern Ontario doesn't go down that easy. My name is Harold McPherson. I'm 68 years old. I've survived black fly season in Thunder Bay, -40 winters in Sudbury, and a marriage that lasted 43 years before my beloved Margaret passed. I built the infrastructure that connects our communities across this vast country. I poured concrete in conditions that would break most men. And lying there in that hospital bed, listening to my only daughter plan how to spend my money before my body was even cold, I made a decision that would change everything. But before I continue, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop a comment below. And if you've ever had someone you trusted completely turn their back on you, hit that subscribe button. You'll want to hear how this ends. The beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room after my daughter hung up. I kept my breathing steady, shallow, the way they taught us during the mining rescue training back in the 80s. I had spent 3 decades working for the Ministry of Transportation before retiring. I knew how to stay calm in crisis situations. I had pulled men out of collapsed tunnels. I had worked through blizzards that shut down entire regions. This was different. This was betrayal from my own blood. My daughter's name is Christine. She's 42 years old, and somewhere along the way, the little girl who used to sit on my shoulders at Canada Day parades became a stranger wearing designer clothes and carrying resentment like a purse. I heard the click of her heels approaching my bed. I felt her shadow fall across my face. "Still out cold," she muttered to herself. Then she laughed, a cold, bitter sound that bore no resemblance to the giggling child I remembered. "Sleep tight, Dad. Dream of your precious cabin. It'll be a condo development by spring." She left. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was alone with the machines and my rage. The cabin. My sanctuary on the shores of Lake of Bays. The place where Margaret and I had spent every summer for 30 years. The place where I had scattered her ashes 2 years ago, watching them drift across the water she loved so much. Christine wanted to sell it to developers. She wanted to turn Margaret's resting place into luxury condominiums for Toronto millionaires. Over my dead body. Except that was exactly what she was counting on. I opened my eyes slowly, testing my strength. The cancer was real enough, stage 3 prostate cancer, that had spread to my lymph nodes. But the doctors had given me 6 months to a year, not 2 weeks. My daughter had either misunderstood or deliberately lied to whoever she was talking to on the phone. I suspected the latter. I reached for the call button, but I didn't press it. Instead, I began to think. I was an engineer. I solved problems for a living. I built structures that could withstand the worst that Canadian weather could throw at them. Surely I could find a way to protect my legacy from my own daughter. First, I needed information. I needed to understand exactly what Christine was planning and who else was involved. The answer came the next morning when visiting hours began. Christine arrived with her husband, Derek, a man I had never liked but had tolerated for my daughter's sake. He sold insurance, or at least he used to. I had heard rumors that his business was struggling, that they had taken out a second mortgage on their house in North York, that they were drowning in credit card debt. Now it all made sense. They stood at the foot of my bed, speaking in hushed tones as if I couldn't hear them. But I had learned to keep my eyes mostly closed, to breathe slowly, to appear weaker than I was. "The lawyer said the power of attorney kicks in the moment he's declared incapacitated," Derek was saying. "We just need a doctor to sign off that he can't make decisions for himself." "What about the cabin?" Christine asked. "Is it in the trust?" "Everything's in the trust. The cabin, the pension, the investments. Once we have control, we can liquidate it all. within 90 days. And the charity thing? That ridiculous foundation he set up in Mom's name? Derek snorted. We'll shut that down first. It's just sitting there, bleeding money to some hospital wing nobody cares about. The Margaret McPherson Foundation. I had established it after my wife's death to fund cancer research at the very hospital where she had been treated. I donated $50,000 a year from my pension. It was my way of honoring her memory, of ensuring that her name would live on even after I was gone. And they wanted to shut it down. I felt my heart rate spike. The monitor began to beep faster. Christine looked up, alarmed. Is he waking up? I forced myself to stay calm, to slow my breathing. The beeping subsided. Just a dream or something, Derek said dismissively. Come on, let's go talk to the social worker about getting him transferred to a long-term care facility. The sooner we get him out of here, the sooner we can start the paperwork. They left, and I was alone again with my thoughts and my fury. A long-term care facility. They wanted to warehouse me in some underfunded institution while they picked my life apart like vultures. They wanted to strip away everything I had built, everything Margaret and I had worked for, and leave nothing but bones. I had one advantage. They thought I was helpless. They thought the cancer and the medication had reduced me to a shell of the man I used to be. They didn't know that Harold McPherson had survived 40 years of working in conditions that killed lesser men. They didn't know that the same stubbornness that had driven me to build roads through the Canadian Shield was now focused entirely on stopping them. I reached under my pillow and pulled out my cell phone. Christine didn't know I had it. She thought I had left it at home, but I had hidden it before the ambulance came, tucked it into my robe pocket, kept it charged by borrowing cables from the nurses when no one was looking. I dialed a number I knew by heart. McLeod and Associates, the voice answered. How may I direct your call? This is Harold McPherson. I need to speak with James McLeod immediately. Tell him it's an emergency. James McLeod had been my lawyer for 30 years. He had handled Margaret's estate. He had helped me set up the foundation. He was one of the few people in this world I trusted completely. Harold? James came on the line within seconds. What's wrong? The hospital called me yesterday saying you were in rough shape. I'm in rough shape, I admitted, but not as rough as my daughter thinks. James, I need you to listen carefully. Christine and her husband are planning to have me declared incapacitated. They want control of the trust. There was a long pause. Are you certain? I heard them talking. They want to sell the cabin, shut down Margaret's foundation, and liquidate everything. Harold, that's criminal. We can fight this. I don't want to fight it. Not in court, anyway. I want to do something else. I want to change everything before they have a chance to take it. What do you mean? I told him. I told him my plan, every detail, every contingency. When I finished, there was another long silence. That's brilliant, James finally said. Absolutely brilliant. But it's going to require precise timing. I've got nothing but time, I said, and a very good reason to use it wisely. I spent the next 3 days pretending to be weaker than I was while James worked behind the scenes. The doctors were puzzled by my lack of improvement, but they attributed it to the cancer's progression. Christine visited every day, sometimes with Derek, sometimes alone. She would sit by my bed, scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing at me with an expression that wasn't quite concern. It was impatience. She was waiting for me to die. On the 4th day, Derek arrived alone. He stood at the foot of my bed, and I watched him through half-closed eyes. You know, Harold, he said, apparently believing I couldn't hear him, you've always been a stubborn old goat. Christine spent her whole life trying to please you, and you've never given her credit for anything. The way I see it, we deserve this. We've earned it. He pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. Pictures of the medical equipment. Pictures of me lying there. Documentation, I realized, for whatever scheme they were cooking up. The appraiser's going to the cabin tomorrow, he continued. Christine's got the spare key from your house. She's already started cleaning the place out. Found some interesting things in your safe, too. Old photographs, jewelry, Margaret's wedding ring. Don't worry, we'll sell that, too. No sense letting sentiment get in the way of profit. Margaret's ring. The ring I had saved for 3 years to buy, working overtime shifts in the dead of winter, just to put something beautiful on the hand of the woman I loved. Something inside me hardened into steel. I waited until Derek left. Then I called James. "They're moving faster than we expected," I told him. "They've been to my house. They're going to the cabin tomorrow." "I'll handle it," James said. "The paperwork is ready. I just need you to sign. I'll be there tonight." "Harold, you're in the hospital. You can't just leave." "Watch me." That night, at 2 in the morning, I signed myself out against medical advice. The night nurse tried to stop me, but I told her I was going home to die in my own bed, and Canadian law said she couldn't hold me against my will. She called the doctor, who tried to talk me out of it, but I had made up my mind. I took a taxi to James's office in the financial district. He was waiting for me, along with a notary and 2 witnesses. We worked until dawn, signing documents, transferring assets, restructuring the entire legal framework of my estate. When we finished, James looked at me with something like admiration. "You've done it, Harold. Everything's in place. But are you sure about this? There's no going back." "I'm sure," I said. "Christine made her choice. Now I'm making mine." The sun was coming up over Lake Ontario when I finally returned to my house in Scarborough. It was a modest bungalow, nothing fancy, but Margaret and I had raised our daughter there. We had planted the garden together, fixed the roof ourselves, watched the seasons change from the same kitchen window for 40 years. I walked through the rooms slowly, seeing the evidence of Christine's search. Drawers had been opened and not properly closed. Papers were scattered on my desk. The safe in the bedroom closet was open, and Margaret's jewelry box was gone. I felt a strange sense of peace. The material things didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what came next. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table to wait. I didn't have to wait long. Christine's car pulled into the driveway at 9 in the morning. She stormed through the front door without knocking, her face flushed with anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" "The hospital called me. They said you left in the middle of the night. Do you have any idea how irresponsible that is?" "Good morning to you too, sweetheart," I said calmly. "Coffee?" "I don't want coffee. I want you back in the hospital where you belong." "You're sick, Dad. You need medical care." "I need a lot of things," I agreed. "Medical care is the least of them." She stopped, something in my tone apparently catching her attention. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Sit down, Christine." "I don't want to sit down." "Sit down." She sat. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, trying to see the child I remembered in the woman before me. I couldn't find her. "I know what you're planning," I said. "I heard you at the hospital. I heard everything." Her face went pale. "Dad, I don't know what you think you heard, but don't." I held up my hand. "Don't insult my intelligence. You were planning to have me declared incapacitated. You were planning to take control of the trust. You were planning to sell the cabin and shut down your mother's foundation. That's not. I also know that Derek's been to my house. I know you took your mother's jewelry. I know you've been going through my papers." Christine's expression shifted from denial to defiance. "So what if we did? You're dying, Dad. Someone has to manage your affairs. And that cabin is worth a fortune just sitting there empty. Mom's been gone for 2 years. It's time to move on." "Move on." I repeated the words slowly, letting them hang in the air between us. "Your mother's ashes are scattered on that lake, Christine. Her memory lives in that water, in those trees, in every sunset we watch together from that dock. And you want to bulldoze it for condos. It's just a place, Dad. Places don't matter. Money matters." I nodded slowly. "I see. And the foundation? The one that funds cancer research in your mother's name? A waste of resources. $50,000 a year could be better spent on living people." "People like you?" She didn't answer, but she didn't have to. The silence said everything. I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. I slid it across the table toward her. "What's this?" "Open it." She tore open the envelope and pulled out the documents inside. I watched her eyes move across the pages, watched her face change as she realized what she was reading. This can't be right." "It's right." "You dissolved the trust?" "I did." "You sold the house?" "I did. Last night. The new owners take possession in 30 days. You gave everything to charity? The pension? The investments? Everything?" "Not everything," I said. But most of it, yes. The Margaret McPherson Foundation now has an endowment of $2 million. It will fund cancer research at Toronto General for the next 50 years at least. Your mother would be proud. Christine's face had gone from pale to red. She was trembling with rage. You can't do this. I'm your daughter. I'm your only family. You're my blood, I agreed. But family is more than blood, Christine. Family is loyalty. Family is love. Family is being there when it matters, not just when there's money to be gained. I've been there for you. Have you? When was the last time you visited me before I got sick? When was the last time you called just to talk? When was the last time you asked how I was doing without following up with a request for money? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. We both knew the answers. What about the cabin? She finally asked. Please tell me you didn't sell the cabin. I smiled. It was not a warm smile. The cabin is in a different category. I transferred it to a land trust that will preserve it as a nature sanctuary in perpetuity. No development, no condos, just the lake and the trees and your mother's memory. Protected forever. You're insane. You've completely lost your mind. I'm going to contest this. I'm going to get lawyers and doctors and prove that you're not competent to make these decisions. You can try, I said. But James McLeod and his team anticipated that. Every document was witnessed by 2 independent physicians who certified my mental competency. Every transaction was recorded on video. Every signature was notarized by 3 separate notaries. You can spend the rest of your life in court, Christine. You won't win. She stood up so fast her chair fell backward. This isn't over, she hissed. I'm going to make your life miserable. You think you're so smart, but you're just a sick old man with no one left who cares about him. That may be true, I acknowledged. But I'd rather die alone with my integrity than surrounded by vultures waiting to pick my bones. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after she left, staring at my coffee, which had gone cold. The house was quiet, too quiet. I had lived here with Margaret for 40 years, and now I was alone in a way I had never been before. I had saved my legacy, protected my wife's memory, but the cost was my only daughter. Was it worth it? I didn't know yet. But I knew I had done what was right. The next few weeks were difficult. The cancer continued its slow march through my body, though the doctors were surprised that my decline wasn't faster. I think spite kept me alive. Spite and the satisfaction of knowing that Christine and Derek couldn't touch what Margaret and I had built. I heard through James that Christine had indeed tried to contest my decisions. She hired lawyers, she filed motions, she even tried to have me committed to a psychiatric facility, claiming I was suffering from dementia. But James was better. He had anticipated every move, prepared every counter-argument, documented every step of my decision-making process. The courts dismissed Christine's claims one after another. Derek's insurance business finally collapsed under the weight of their debt. They lost the house in North York. Christine called me once, sobbing, begging for help. I listened to her cry for 3 minutes. Then I told her the truth. You had a father who loved you, Christine. You had a mother who adored you. You had every opportunity in the world, and you threw it all away for money you didn't even need. I forgave you for a lot of things over the years, but I can't forgive this. Not because I don't want to, but because you're not sorry. You're not sorry for what you did. You're just sorry it didn't work. She hung up on me. I never heard from her again. I sold the house in Scarborough, as planned. The new owners were a young couple with 2 small children, new immigrants from the Philippines. They reminded me of Margaret and me when we were young, full of hope and dreams. I gave them the keys personally and wished them well. Then I did something that surprised even myself. I went to the cabin. The drive up Highway 11 was beautiful in late autumn. The leaves had turned, painting the Canadian shield in shades of red and gold. I passed through towns I had known my whole life. Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, Huntsville. The land welcomed me home. The cabin was exactly as I remembered it. Small, rustic, nestled among the pines on a rocky point overlooking the lake. I had built the deck myself 30 years ago, with lumber from a mill in Parry Sound. Margaret and I had painted the shutters together, arguing good-naturedly about whether they should be green or blue. We compromised on teal. I walked down to the dock and sat on the bench where we used to watch the sunset. The water was still, reflecting the colors of the sky. Somewhere out there, beneath the surface, were the ashes of the woman I loved. I protected it, Margaret, I said aloud. Nobody's going to build condos here. Nobody's going to turn our memories into profit. It's safe. Forever. A loon called from across the lake. I took it as a sign. I spent the next 6 months at the cabin. The land trust allowed me to live there as long as I wanted, and the local doctors in Huntsville managed my treatment. I watched the winter come, watched the lake freeze over, watched the snow pile up around the cabin like a protective blanket. I was dying, but I was at peace. In the spring, when the ice began to break up, I received an unexpected visitor. A young woman in her early 20s, with Christine's eyes but a different expression, softer, kinder. Grandpa? I stared at her. Emily? My granddaughter, Christine's daughter, from her first marriage, before Derek. I hadn't seen her in 5 years, not since Christine had cut off contact after a family argument. Mom doesn't know I'm here, Emily said quickly. I came on my own. I took the bus from Ottawa. Come in, I said. Come in out of the cold. We sat in the cabin's small living room, a fire crackling in the wood stove. Emily told me her story. She was in her final year at Carleton University, studying environmental science. She had a job lined up with Parks Canada after graduation. She was engaged to a young man who worked as a park warden in Algonquin. I heard about what Mom did, she said. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I'm so ashamed. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You weren't part of it. I know, but she's my mother. And the things she said about you, the things she told people, I knew they weren't true. I knew you weren't crazy or senile. I just didn't know how to reach you. I felt something warm spread through my chest. It wasn't the cancer. It was hope. How did you find me? Mr. McLeod, your lawyer. I called his office and told him who I was. He said you were here and that you might like some company. James. Even now, looking out for me. Emily stayed for the weekend. We talked about everything. She remembered coming to the cabin as a child, remembered swimming in the lake, remembered her grandmother's blueberry pancakes. She cried when I told her about the land trust, about how the cabin would be preserved forever. Grandma would be so happy, she said. I know, I said. That's why I did it. Before she left, Emily asked me a question that caught me off guard. Grandpa, do you regret it? Cutting Mom off, I mean, giving everything away. Do you ever wonder if things could have been different? I thought about it for a long time before answering. I regret a lot of things, Emily. I regret not seeing the warning signs earlier. I regret not having harder conversations when your mother was younger. I regret letting money become more important than relationships in our family. But I don't regret protecting your grandmother's memory. And I don't regret standing up for what's right, even when it cost me everything. She hugged me then, tight and fierce. I'm proud of you, Grandpa. Those 4 words meant more to me than all the money in the world. Emily visited me every month after that. Sometimes she brought her fiancé, a quiet young man named Daniel who shared my love of the outdoors. They would help me with repairs around the cabin, cook meals together, sit on the dock, and watch the loons. When the doctors told me I had weeks left, not months, Emily was the one I called. She drove up from Ottawa that same night, arriving at the cabin in the small hours of the morning. I'm here, Grandpa, she said, taking my hand. I'm not going anywhere. I lived for 3 more weeks. 3 weeks of sunsets over the lake, 3 weeks of Emily reading to me from books Margaret had loved, 3 weeks of peace. On the last day, I asked Emily to take me down to the dock. She wrapped me in blankets and helped me into the wheelchair the home care nurse had brought. We sat together, looking out over the water. I'm leaving you the cabin, I told her. James has all the paperwork. You're the new custodian of the land trust. It's your responsibility now to protect this place, to keep it wild and free. Emily was crying. I'll take care of it, Grandpa. I promise. I know you will. You're the best of us, Emily. You have your grandmother's heart. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought I could see Margaret out there, just beyond the tree line, waving to me. Tell me about the first time you brought Grandma here, Emily said softly. I smiled, remembering. I told her the story, how Margaret had been afraid of the boat at first, how she had shrieked when a fish jumped near the dock, how she had fallen in love with the place despite herself. We were young, I said. So young and so in love. We thought we had forever. You did have forever, Emily said. This place is your forever. It always will be. I closed my eyes, listening to the water lap against the rocks, feeling the last warmth of the sun on my face. I thought about everything I had built, everything I had lost, everything I had protected. Christine had wanted my money. She had wanted the easy path, the shortcut, the inheritance without the work. She had looked at her father and seen nothing but a wallet waiting to be emptied. But she had made a mistake. She had forgotten who raised her. She had forgotten that the same stubbornness that had driven me to build roads through the Canadian wilderness would drive me to protect my legacy from anyone who threatened it, even her. I didn't hate my daughter. Hate takes energy I no longer had. But I had learned a hard truth in my 68 years on this earth. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the family you were born into. I squeezed Emily's hand. I'm ready, I said. And I was. The loons were calling across the lake as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Somewhere out there, in the water and the trees and the rocks, Margaret was waiting for me. I went to her. The cabin still stands on the shores of Lake of Bays. Emily keeps it exactly as I left it, teal shutters and all. She brings her children there every summer, teaches them to swim in the lake, makes them blueberry pancakes from Margaret's recipe. The Margaret Macpherson Foundation has funded groundbreaking cancer research. The endowment I established has grown, and now the annual grants help hundreds of patients every year. Christine and Derek divorced 2 years after my death. Last I heard, she was working as a cashier in a grocery store somewhere in British Columbia. She never contacted Emily, never asked about the cabin, never showed any interest in the grandmother she never bothered to know. Some people learn from their mistakes. Others are defined by them. As for me, my ashes were scattered on the lake, mixed with Margaret's, carried by the wind across the water we loved. I am part of the wilderness now, part of the Canadian Shield, part of something bigger and older and more enduring than money or property or family grudges. My journey taught me a painful but necessary lesson. Blood does not guarantee loyalty. For years, I built infrastructure that connected communities across this country. Yet, I failed to see the cracks forming in the foundation of my own family. True strength is not in the legacy you accumulate, but in the courage to protect what matters from those who would destroy it. You cannot buy respect, and sometimes the greatest act of love is allowing people to face the consequences of their own choices. Peace is the only luxury truly worth fighting for, and it is never too late to reclaim it. If you believe justice was served today, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. I want to hear from you in the comments. Would you have given Christine a second chance?